There are 40 faces on it that we picked. It's not just our guys, but it's civilians, it is nuns, nurses, the dog that was ever present in Vietnam. We even have a faceless face there for the guys that didn't come back, the MIAs. We started thinking about water. I got the idea, why don't we have a veil of tears flowing out of the top of the monument, down over the faces and the young soldier that was stepping out of the monument. And then of course the idea was, why were they there? It was to fight for peace for the little girl that represented their children. She's reaching back toward her dad, who is in the war. They don't touch. And she represents the future, the reason he was there giving his all. In 1993, we got an invitation to enter an architectural competition. It was sent by a little group of Roswell Vietnam vets. And we hit on the idea of all the pictures we'd seen in newspapers and magazines of the different faces of the war. And so that was the birth of the basis for the sculpture. And so we got the word that they unanimously picked ours out of the 17. Well, as soon as we won the competition and met with the group, that's when they told me there was no money to pay me or to build it. So we scratched our heads, and so my wife, Lynn, and I joined the committee to help them raise the money so they could build it. And that was a 2-year arduous process by all of us raising the money. Well, we had the idea of the memorial bricks, which was a good one. We had fundraising events through the Visitor Center, and we sold t-shirts and caps, and we sent out pledge cards, and then we knocked on doors. When we broke ground, which would have been in '94, we had a gathering of the vets and their shovels and the dignitaries, the local dignitaries, the city council. And it was, those guys, wasn't sure we'd ever break ground either, so they were crying. And the day we dedicated it, we wanted to shroud it so we could take it down at the last minute. So they put a big white parachute over it, and then when we dedicated, we had the Boy Scouts pull it down, and there was this big in the crowd. There were colonels and generals and Vietnam vets in their motorcycle gear standing there arm in arm with hands on shoulders, crying together, looking at that monument. That was just unforgettable. It was the most inspired, creative, wonderful experience in my whole career, my whole life, and I don't see how anything could top it.
I served the Roswell Rotary Club as its president in the first year that Roswell Remembers began, and it was a project that we started after some conversations about what should we do in our year to leave a legacy. What should we do that would be felt by the community and continue.
Roswell Remembers is a collaboration between the City of Roswell and the Roswell Rotary Club.
Welcome to Roswell's Memorial Day celebration. On the last day of May every year, we come here to remember those who have died defending our country and to thank all of those who have served in our military.
You know, you never know when you start something like this, whether or not anybody's going to care or whether it's going to catch on, and it has to an incredible degree.
People have learned that it's a quality event, now one of the largest in the Southeast, and they actually want to come and be a part of that event now.
Today I'd like to remember some of my buddies, our brothers, our sisters, and our sons and daughters. Not only just who's fighting currently in Iraq and Afghanistan, but the wars that nobody hears about.
I'm a veteran of the Korean War. In Korea, they didn't care if we went. They didn't know we were there. And most people did not care if we came back.
War is the epitome of mismanagement of the intelligence of man. But the common man in an uncommon situation, he shines because he's willing to sacrifice his life to save a small child, willing to sacrifice a career for a small child.
May 15th, 1969. I have 8 full helicopters on the way to my triage. I already had 20 on the ground. And our radio squawked, and it gave a tail number I had never heard before from this dust-off pilot. And this is what he said: need immediate permission to land. Have severely wounded civilian baby on board. Need to land now. And I remembered the words of my mother, who was a great patriot. And she said to me as she sent Al and I off to Vietnam, she said, "Donna, do what is right." And that words came to me as I turned to Sergeant Grant and I said to him, "Tell 3 and 4 to pull away, let him come in to Hotel 3, which was our helipad." Sergeant Grant looked at me and he said, "Captain, you're going to take hell for this." And I looked at him and said, "What can they do? Send us to Vietnam?" When the back of that ambulance opened and Specialist Greer stepped out and said this to me, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. He said, "Captain, we had to break the mother's arms. They've completely wiped out her whole village. She is the only survivor." That little tiny baby fit from here to here. My men and I worked on her. I grabbed the Catholic chaplain as we were rushing her to surgery, but I knew that if Father Sullivan baptized this baby, that the Catholic orphanage would take her because she had no village. Or, in my belief, she would go to heaven. So Father Sullivan, running along with us along this gurney, running down the hallway to the OR, put his hand on her head, and he said, "I baptize thee." And he looked at me, and I said, "Name her Kathleen." Kathleen survived. She went to the orphanage, I came home. 30 years later, they're doing a film on the documentary of the Huey helicopter. The AJC printed the story, it was taped into the movie, and a year later I got a call from the producer saying, "Are you sitting down? Someone wants to talk to you." And I said, "Well, who is it?" And she said, "It's the baby." 34 years later, this child, now a woman, was adopted by an American Navy nurse, male, who took care of the Marines, brought her home to California, and she still wanted to know about those people on her baptismal certificate. And she found us all, and that's the story of baby Kathleen. But that story dispels everything the press said about the Vietnam vets. We were not baby killers. We were the best that could be put to work. So I go out and speak about this for my fellow vets. Because when we came home, we weren't welcomed home. But now you're doing a pretty good job of it, and I want to commend you on it. Thank you for what you do.
I like to think that what makes Roswell Remembers so special and so unique is the dedication of the people involved, the intensity with which we so strongly believe that this is an important event. This isn't just another day and another social activity. This is an event that's important for us to note. It's important for us to pass on to our neighbors and our friends and our relatives and our kids and our grandkids. The incredible imperative of, as a free people, taking a little time, stepping back, and remembering why this is the greatest country in the history of the world.
the funding necessary for us to put on the quality event that we have per year can take between $20,000 and $30,000 per year. So we obviously cherish our what we call hometown hero sponsors that help keep us in the black with our event. In years past, we would be putting on Memorial Day and not knowing if we had enough money to finance the event. So we greatly appreciate the help that we have gotten from local businesses, which we call our hometown hero sponsors, and then those who wish to participate in a different way with a silent sponsorship that we are happy to recognize through both the club and those in the city as a whole who want to finance the event. We can't do it without them.